आज ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੈਸਟ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਐਕਟਰ ਵੀ ਹੈ, ਇੱਕ ਬ੍ਰੌਡਕਾਸਟਰ ਹੈ, ਆਪਣੀ ਇੱਕ ਕਮਿਊਨੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਚਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਹੈ, ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ, ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਐਡਵੋਕੇਟ ਵੀ ਰਹੇ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਇੱਕ ਫਾਇਰ ਫਾਈਟਰ ਵੀ ਰਹੇ ਹੈ. So we have today with us a person who believes what he do is right, who believes he stands with the truth. So none other than Bruce Marshall. Bruce, welcome and thanks for joining with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Bruce. If you give your little introduction, because I already gave in Punjabi, if you tell about yourself, you are an actor, you are a broadcaster, also own communication company, political candidate, political advocate in the Brampton, and also was a firefighter.
Yes. And a paper boy one time and, delivered groceries. A whole range of things. I've had an interesting career path, to be sure.
Interesting. And you never told your friends that you were also delivering in Canada Post. You were also attached with them.
Well, no, I had not. Well, you know what? And I'm going to deal with this in another upcoming commentary. The thing that I found out about Canada, well, everybody has their idea about Canada Post. Everybody has their idea about these lazy bums who use the contract all the time to try to get out of work. And the kind of amazing thing I found is that it's exactly the opposite. Those guys at the front lines are salt of the earth, hardworking guys, like the guys who do the regular door-to-door delivery. You know, everybody, there's some myth out there about, oh, those guys only work 4 hours a day. No, that's a hard-slogging 7-hour-a-day walk and about 15 kilometers on average, from what I understand. A lot of those people are athletes. And I found a lot to admire at the post office, but I identify myself as a different kind of guy than somebody who works at the post office. So I had not, and there was that stigma too. And that's why I had not let anybody know. But I saw these problems that I knew were problems. And, I waited for them. They're a big organization, and I expected that, they're just going to swing into action and there's going to be policy changes that are going to look after these things. But it never happened, and I got gravely concerned.
Bruce, before starting, let me start with that. Like, we'll have a Marshall minute today. So
sure. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It won't be a minute, but it will be a few more minutes from you, because it's
sure.
Very important subject in terms of safety, which you took forward. That safety is first. Mail is not the priority, but safety is the priority, on which you made your stand very clear. You're working with the Canada Post for last 3 years, right?
Yeah.
And you talked about the gateway facility in Mississauga, which is one of the biggest sorting facility.
Yep.
What happened there? You are a whistleblower for this. What happened? How it started? And did you quit your job? Can you give us some details?
No. To answer your last question first, I guess. No, I have not quit my job. What I did was I took the extraordinary step that is available to all employees under both federal and provincial labor legislation. I refused to work in a dangerous environment. Things just seemed to, it wasn't that they got worse, it's just that they stayed the same. And there was a lot of Band-Aid measures, like, for example, gloves were provided to all kinds of people. Well, I know from my firefighting experience, and it may sound stupid, but there's training for gloves. There's training for things like washing your hands. Washing your hands in the emergency services is a 3-hour course. But there's been no training in how to use this equipment, and it has been used incorrectly. The masks were given out right, left, and center. And the problem that I have with the masks is that the federal Dr. Theresa Tam, the federal medical officer of health, says that they shouldn't be used by anybody other than medical people. And the reason they shouldn't be used, she qualifies it, is because the mask.
These were N95 masks?
Well, it doesn't matter what mask you're wearing. The point still remains the same. If a regular civilian is wearing them who is not used to wearing them, they're always touching their face. And that's the thing that is going to bring possible infection to your face, is your hands constantly being on your face. And there was the other issue of perhaps being overconfident that, well, I've got a mask on and now I can go anywhere. Well, no, you can't. So they gave a false sense of security, and they might have been a vector for disease on your face. They shouldn't have been given out. The medical officer of health of the nation was clear on that, and Canada Post basically violated what she had recommended. And that's fine if they've got rationale for it. But if you say you're following the medical officer of health of Canada, and then you do something entirely different, that's dumb.
So, Bruce, you wrote to the Labor Ministry that refused to work. You talked to the President of Canada Post, Doug Eringer.
No, I did not talk to Doug Ettinger. I have written to him. I have CC'd him in letters 3 times over about grave safety concerns, and so far, Mr. Ettinger has been too busy to respond to very grave safety issues at the company where he is the CEO and president.
Bruce, you use very strong words that he's dumb, deaf, blind. So why so harsh words?
Well, I'm a bit of a colorful speaker sometimes, and I know how to get attention. And the analogy is that it's a reference really to an old song, Pinball Wizard. Pinball Wizard, he's the deaf, dumb, and blind kid. And here's a man who I've sent letters to about grave safety concerns. I haven't heard from him. He hasn't heard me, I don't think. And, he hasn't seen anything that I've sent him. Well, it needs attention. It needs serious attention.
So far you have not heard anything from him?
No.
So you also wrote to the Member of Parliaments of Brampton, then you wrote to the Mayor Patrick Brown, you said you wrote to the Mississauga Mayor.
Yeah.
Any reply from them?
No, and I don't necessarily expect any replies. I've sent the message out. They know what the situation is. They may very well work behind the scenes and, through their contacts, make things happen. And they may make things happen quietly. That's just something I felt was the moral thing to do. Masks are needed by frontline health workers. I'll give you an example. Jeff Bowman, Councillor Jeff Bowman here in Brampton. He had like a small tabletop full of masks left over from when he had done some renovations at his cottage and there had been mold in the insulation. These were the N95 masks that were needed because they were needed for the mold, but he had this box of them mostly left over. He took it over to the hospital. Now, I don't know how many masks Canada Post had, but when I was last in there, they seemed to be handing them out whenever anybody wanted them. And if nurses are having to ration their masks, that's wrong. That's morally wrong.
I see. Bruce, you said that Canada Post is a toxic petri dish in which disease to fall and grow.
Yes, I did.
Is the situation that bad there?
Well, I'm not saying that it's a dirty place. What I'm saying is that they have no procedures in place to isolate departments or isolate people. Everybody, the way everybody walks around there is basically the way they did before COVID. There are signs up that say stay 6 feet apart, but there are many places in the facility where that just doesn't happen. Or you come across somebody and you're closer than 6 feet together, or you have to work together on something and you're more than 6 feet together. So the problem that I identified with my particular job, my job over there was to get a load of mail that had come in from a depot in Scarborough. 280 Progress is the address of the place. It's a big old Canada Post depot. Bring that mail back to the Gateway facility where it's unloaded, then it's sorted and sent out around the world. So just as I go over to 280 Progress to get the mail, so too I could go over to 280 Progress and get COVID. It could be somebody in the station has it. They pass it on to one of the material handlers on the dock. The material handler passes it on to me. Just like I bring the mail back to Gateway, I bring the COVID back to Gateway. And I pass it on to one of the material handlers at Gateway. And then he passes it on to somebody inside the plant. And then the whole of Canada Post for the whole Greater Toronto area is taken down by COVID because they have failed to put isolation in place that would keep the business going. Quite apart from the issue of health and safety of the workers, are they very serious issues, the very serious threat to business continuity for Canada Post in the way that they're managing this.
Bruce, when you wrote to the ministry, Labour Ministry, refusal to work, any response from them?
Well, there's a process. There are two processes actually that you can go through with Canada Post. There's one that's referred to as the union process. It's a process under the contract. I looked over both processes, and I wanted the federal labor ministry involved. I wanted a federal labor investigator involved, and that is what has happened. So I spoke to, there was a young man who was the labor investigator in the early few days. And then when things started to happen on Thursday, when my video was published and some letters were sent out, all of a sudden they sent that to somebody else. I don't know whether that means it's been sent to somebody who's more senior. But if I was a guessing man, I would guess that the Minister of Labor is actually involved in this file now herself.
Yeah, we also saw your video on social media, and it's very alarming that one of our residents is so much concerned about safety, and there must be some issue. That's why you said nobody needs to die for the mail. You said Canada Post believes more on moving things than the safety.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and that is, I have heard at this point now, we're talking at almost 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, and I've probably got 30,000 views or just shy of 30,000 views. And there are lots of comments. I've had phone calls, I have emails, I have text messages and WhatsApps and all kinds of things. And a lot of people are saying the same things, how concerned they are about safety issues.
We know the mayor, Patrick Brown, he's a leader. He's always open to the things. He's always said, okay, come bring into my notice, I'll see.
Yeah.
So Member of Parliament, Saul Brampton Parliament, when you brought everything in their notice, any reaction from them? No, they have been strangely quiet, but then again, maybe they're working. See, I'm not looking to make anybody look stupid. I'm working to get some things done. And if I have to sort of set myself on fire to get some attention in the beginning, and then hopefully, express as you guys give me the opportunity to hear, what I think we need to move forward, that's good. You said that Canada Post is an essential service. That does not mean it's a sacrificial service.
Well,
and you also salute to the delivery people. They are the heroes.
Yes.
So how come it becomes a sacrificial? We have seen that every frontline workers, health workers, the grocery, the pharmacies, they are the frontline workers. They are also on the front line. They are not the sacrificial workers.
No.
How come you said that it's a sacrificial service?
Here's what I mean by that. If the proper safety measures are not in place to be able to do the job safely in the era of COVID, we could lose people. I mean, you look at, I was watching CNN early last week, and they had the numbers for the New York Police Department. 20% of the total staff, 30 to 35,000 officers is their total. 20% of them were off with COVID, it was reported. And when I saw the reports, they had 12 dead on NYPD. Canada Post is an organization with some 60 to 65 Canadians, or 60 to 65,000 Canadians in their employ. In many respects, a lot of the jobs that people do at Canada Post sort of are the same sort of contacts with people that a police officer might have. You know, you go in to deliver a package, or like I do, I go out to a depot and pick up a load of mail or whatever. There just are a lot, there are a lot of human contacts. And I think they need to really consider how those can be shifted. Let me give you an example. My driving job, you know, I back up to the dock, I chuck the wheels of the truck, I go inside. There's a device that actually locks the truck to the building so you can't drive it away. The real danger of unloading a truck is the people who are on forklifts moving in and out. And if the truck were to move, that forklift could fall between the building and the truck and cause grievous bodily harm or death to the operator of that. That's a thing that happens in shipping businesses all the time, actually. Canada Post is really a leader in making sure that that truck is locked into the building and the wheels are chalked so that that doesn't move. And that's that's the driver's prime responsibility when they get inside. And then as the driver, you open up the doors and put the ramp down, and then a material operator comes and, or a material handler comes and loads the truck. And then your next responsibility after that is to make sure that the load that has been loaded by the material handler is secure so that you can close the door, drive it away, and unlock your truck from the building. So the danger is in that I have to go inside the building and actually do all that stuff. If we change the procedure, and I'll tell you, I enjoy going inside the depots and inside the buildings and having a laugh with people and all of that. Maybe you can tell, I'm a social guy, but it's the era of COVID, and maybe we need to rethink that. And nobody has been creative enough at Canada Post to think, yeah, what about if we the drivers just stayed in their vehicles and the people inside were responsible for locking the vehicle in and making sure the load was secure. But, I'm no production engineer or anything like that, but it seems like a simple answer, doesn't it? A simple solution to a pressing problem.
That's right. Bruce, my next question to you is, you said there is a hoard of N95 mask at Canada Post facility. And,
yes.
And you were a whistleblower. You brought into the notice of every concerned person.
Yep.
Why those masks were there? They must be there for further distribution or something.
Well, no, I'll tell you why those masks are there. They're the legend of the masks and the gloves at Canada Post. For years now, it's a dusty old place. And, there are people who ask for masks to wear while they're working to protect themselves from dust. And they've done that for years. And then the dust on their hands and all of that, and they've had nitrile gloves. And they've had gloves available now for years, too. Anybody who wants gloves, anybody who wants masks, go ahead and take them.
Those were N95? No.
Well, I don't know. I don't think they were originally N95. Though that transition happened on, I began seeing the N95 masks on April 2nd. The evening of April 2nd, I saw my first N95 masks. But the other masks, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, those N95, we are talking about N95 because those N95 masks are for the frontline workers, for the doctors, nurses.
Well, they are, but any mask down from that, like if they've run out of N95s, and they will run out of N95s, and the people will have to go down to lesser masks, and they'll be taking their lives in jeopardy to do that. But this is something else. The World Health Organization has said the only people who should be wearing any kind of medical mask is somebody who works in medicine with people who have COVID. So that seems pretty clear. The World Health Organization is pretty clear on that.
So why that hoard of masks were there? Were they for
I began to tell you. They were there because people had asked for masks before. And so there was all these masks around there. And then they transitioned over as COVID became more threatening. There were more and more people asking for masks. But against the background of that, I was listening to the medical officer of health of the country saying, no, don't wear those. Like I myself, I have not worn a mask. I won't wear a mask. And I'm sort of, when I was a firefighter, I wore breathing apparatus masks. But I mean, the incredible measures that are being made to save masks. For example, the Brampton Fire Department is prepared to go to COVID calls. Their firefighters will wear their full firefighting gear, like a snowmobile suit in summer, breathing apparatus, helmet. They'll deal with the COVID patient, and then they'll come outside, and the hazardous materials decontamination team will be there and do a biohazard decontamination on them so that they can safely take their gear off and go back to the station. That's to save one N95 mask. That's the lengths that Brampton Fire has thought about and is going to save masks. And I should say, too, City of Brampton is just the gold standard in emergency preparedness. And that was sort of my perspective on this, too. I had an opportunity to speak with Alain Normand, who is Brampton's Grandmaster of Disaster. He's an emergency planner and emergency manager who is renowned across Canada and I believe across North America and maybe around the world. And all of this, like this idea of separating departments, this is stuff that Brampton has done weeks ago. The Brampton Emergency Operations Center staff have been forbidden to be in the same building with each other. They've split into two teams, and the two teams can't have anything to do with each other except over the phone or via, digital means. They can't be together in the same room or even the same building because they want to make sure if COVID gets into the one group, it doesn't get into the other. Fire stations. Nobody is allowed in a fire station in Brampton anymore except the on-duty crew. It used to be that, somebody from another department needs to use the washroom, or maybe they need to speak to the fire captain about something or whatever, or the training department needs to come in. And there'd be a steady stream of people who would come in and out of a fire station. Not anymore, because they've isolated those firefighters from the rest of the organization. So if it ends up that those firefighters end up with COVID, they don't spread it back through the city of Brampton. This is brilliant business continuity in the age of COVID in the city of Brampton. My hat's off to the people who put that together. And I know that Alain Normand was the key conductor of all of that.
Bruce, then afterwards, you requested them to move these N95 masks from here and send to the frontline workers?
Well, I said, yes, I spoke to somebody at work. I didn't think it was going to happen, but I told them that was my expectation. I read the early script of what became that video to one of the managers at Canada Post, and I told them that was going to be the script for a video and that I would put it up online, and they didn't seem to think that was of any consequence that they should react to. And now we have coming up on 30,000 views, and I'm being interviewed by Prime Asia TV.
Because the reason is the safety is also, always a concern, and if there is something, viewers must know what's happening there.
Indeed.
Bruce, Premier Ford, few weeks ago, he announced that there is a shortage we have left just 1 week of supply of.
Yep. Right? Last Monday.
Yes.
Yep.
After that, 3 weeks ago, the physician, Dr. Melissa Yuan Enns at Glengarry Memorial Hospital in Alexandria, Ontario, he started the petition, and 192,000 signatures are there that frontline workers need equipment now, and we have not received any delivery of masks so far. And above that, just a few days ago, your video came up with that Canada Post facility has a N95 mask lines there. So move it.
Yep.
So everything, because when we saw that, and we interviewed one of the MP also here, and even Minister Anita Nunn, she talked to physician Dr. Melissa,
Hmm.
So your video was very alarming that if you have a facility, Canada Post, and they have N95 masks, and frontline workers are saying that we are not receiving it, so it becomes a concern.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. That was one of my manifold concerns with respect to the way Canada Post was operating. And I made the argument to them that I said, this is immoral that there's all these masks here. This is wrong when the medics need them. And, they're handed out there like a sort of a soother or a security blanket. And, that's wasting them when frontline medics are, it's a piece of video I saw last week of a California nurse um, uh, talking about how she had her masks taken away from her, and she just about had a meltdown. And it was very disturbing because she was going to have to use the same mask all day long. And, we see examples here in Brampton, MP Kamalkara, who got COVID, who was working as a nurse. And, one suspects that the way that happened was she got it off of her own protective equipment. And we have protective equipment being wasted. It's a time of war. Everybody needs to pitch in. And I don't think Canada Post was doing the moral thing, and I don't think they were pitching in. They were thinking they were something special.
Bruce, you said Canada Post is not doing enough for the safety. You went ahead and you asked the resignation from the leader of Canada Post.
Yes.
You even said that if someone dies in Canada Post, then the supervisor or their senior, they should be held accountable and charged with criminal negligence causing death charges.
Yes.
Very strong statement, Bruce.
No, not a strong statement at all. I said in the piece, I think that if I was a landlord and I rented my illegal basement apartment with no smoke alarms in it to you, and unfortunately there was a fire and you died, I should probably go to jail for 10 years at least for your life, because I didn't install a smoke alarm and I rented an illegal basement apartment to you. And likewise, if somebody doesn't put safety first, if they put, well, the mail must get through. Well, no, the mail, it's a great idea that the mail must get through, but the mail must get through safely. If it's safe, it can get through. There's no, we have to do it even if it's unsafe. And here's the funny thing with Canada Post. They're usually pretty good about these things, but this COVID thing has really blindsided them. And, I get the impression that Canada Post, and I guess we all suspect this, is kind of like an aircraft carrier at sea. When an aircraft carrier at sea is going to turn, they probably plan 3 days before they actually execute the turn, because that thing is just so big. And Canada Post is this, I don't know, 1 billion times bigger than an aircraft carrier. And, the captain says, okay, turn. And then 6 months later, the ship actually starts to turn.
Yeah, you said in one of your statements that a rotten ship. You use very strong words in your video.
Well, I did. But what I wanted to get back to was the issues of, and I will get to this in my second video, the issues of leadership. If you are a senior executive with a company like Canada Post, and you can be at home in your bedroom slippers doing your job, and there are people out there on the front lines who are actually doing the job of the company loyally, faithfully, working hard, salt of the earth people, and you aren't providing those people with the safety equipment that they need, that's bad, but it's also a failure of leadership. A leader provides their people with the best stuff. A leader doesn't, safety doesn't have a price for a leader. It's paramount. But the thing I hear again and again from people, the people who got in touch with me, was, yeah, that's a great idea, but we can't afford that. What? Can't afford that. It's keep people safe. And the thing that thing that drives me crazy about this is I knew in the fire service, when I was a firefighter, safety was number one. You were always thinking about safety, always thinking about how not to have a firefighter funeral. And, I think that's part of the thing here is these guys have never had any post office funerals, but there's going to be in this COVID thing, even if there was the most incredibly strict measures put in place, there are going to be people who will die because of their job at the post office. It's a frontline job. It puts people out there. It's not sitting at home in your bedroom slippers like the senior executives of Canada Post are fortunate enough to do.
That's why you said mail is not worth your life.
No, it's not. It's just the mail. I mean, even when I was a firefighter, there were limits to what we could do or would do. There were times when a house it was going too bad to go in and fight it. There might have been people in it, but those people probably by that point were unfortunately gone. And you wouldn't take crazy risks. You measure your risks, but I don't think they don't have a measure of this COVID. That's for sure.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you for letting us know what all story was there in the Canada Post, and you are a whistleblower. You took safety concerns. That was your main concern, safety first.
Yep.
Mail is not important. Mail is important, but safety.
No. Let me interrupt you there. The mail is important, and Canada Post has become an important cornerstone of the Canadian economy, and that's why I'm upset about the threats to business continuity as well as the threats to the safety of people who work at Canada Post. It's bad business too. Okay. Sorry.
That's fine. Bruce, now we'll come back to the Marshall Minute.
Yes.
And what is the update on this long weekend in Brampton? What is the latest?
Well, I have not finished. I usually Brampton Now update drops on Sunday afternoon, and I'm a little behind in my production schedule. But there's I'll tell you one story that I'm going to be talking about. I'll tell you a really nice story that I'm going to be talking about, actually. Councillor Jeff Bowman, who I mentioned earlier. Jeff, I don't know how he found out, but the Home Depots in Brampton had all these little project things. They were going to do a thing during the March break with kids coming in, and you could build your own birdhouse, you could build your own spoon rack, or whatever different little projects that they have. And so they had all these projects. So Jeff arranged to get them over to Regeneration Outreach for the food bank that they do over there, and to be able to give out to the kids. And while I'm mentioning Regen, let me mention the food banks right across the board. There's Siva Food Bank, which does such great service in Brampton and Malton and into Mississauga. Regeneration at regenbrampton.com, and Knight's Table at knightstable.org. They are all crying out for donations. And they've had one figure I heard was that they saw a 450% increase in demand for food bank services this week over last week. So if people can help them out, that would be wonderful.
Okay. What about the task forces which City of Brampton has, different task forces?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good initiative from the leader, and the councils, all the councillors are working on that, helping seniors, helping youth, and as an active council.
Yep. I think that's those councils are a wonderful idea, and let me say too that Patrick Brown has been a wonderful leader. Let me say too that you probably remember that I put in an integrity commissioner complaint against the entire Brampton City Council at one point back at the beginning of last summer. And there were lots of people who had lots of ideas about what my motivation was. And I hated this person and I had it in for that person. And no, I thought it was a bad decision. By and large, I think our council make good decisions. And I'm proud of Patrick in the way that he has conducted himself so far in this. And, I expect that to continue. But as Patrick told me himself, when we had a phone conversation about a week ago, he has a great team. He has Alain Normand, the master of disaster there, and he's like the mad scientist behind the curtain with the okay, I'll get the pandemic playbook out. Okay, with first thing we need to do is this, and it's kind of like a movie.
Yeah. Bruce, the fines also, Patrick, he started the fines for the party which happened in Brampton.
Yeah.
Bruce, I'll say that the United Council we have seen, which the residents, their confidence boosts with that when they see their council working, when they see they are united. We have seen recently 2 motions. You might cover that. Motion by Councillor Sherman Williams, motion by the other Afghan minorities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Councillor Sherman's motion in regard to the shortage of doctors, she suggested that internationally trained doctors and nurses, which is a very high number here in Ontario, 30,000 doctors, 6,000 nurses are here. So why not to induct them in the system? After that, Premier Ford, they started the online portal.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well,
I think we take too little advantage of foreign trained professionals. I think there's now I don't know anything about the standards of some place versus Canada, but I think there's sometimes a little bit of arrogance in the way that's applied. And it may be that an education in a developing country 50 years ago was different from an education here in Canada, but I think that gap is closing. And I don't know, but I would imagine that most universities in South Asia, certainly the big ones, would be the equal of a university in North America. So why not take advantage of the training that those people have got? And if there's different procedures or ways of doing things, well, catch them up with a course. And there are courses like that available, but in some respects too, I think we put too many stumbling blocks in the way of people like that. Throughout the professions that could be applied here. Why have a guy who's trained or a woman who's trained as a doctor or a lawyer, driving a cab or being a cashier? That's dumb for the economy.
Yeah. Bruce, in the end, you want to give a message to the Bramptonians?
Just know that the city of Brampton is now. This is me talking as an experienced emergency responder now. So let me qualify it that way. The city of Brampton's doing a wonderful job. All of the stuff that's in place, they are doing their best. Please obey any of the measures that they put in because they're not a joke. They're put in there for good reason. I know there's a guy around town who thinks it's all a conspiracy and it's a hoax and it's, they're putting these measures in place to control you. No, these measures are put in place because we've got a pandemic going around the world and it's real. And, my hat's off to Patrick Brown. And I should add too, I was not a big fan of Doug Ford before this, but he has proved his mettle with this as a leader. I'm not sure I'll agree so much with his politics when this is all over and done with, but he's proven himself to be a wonderful leader, and so has Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Wonderful through this.
Okay, good. Bruce, in the end, we know that you are a good actor also. We never saw your skills. Like, if you have to sell your acting skills, where do we have to go for that?
Where do I have? Well,
where can we see your acting skills?
Oh yeah, most of what I do is voice acting. So I act in front of a microphone like this here, and I do things like there's a little voice piece that is on the current Tim Hortons commercial for Wayne Gretzky, the Canadian hockey hero, and there's a couple of other things around. Last time I was on camera, though, was 3 days with James Franco in Stephen King's 11/22/63, where I played Coach Borman, kind of a hard-ass guy, hard-ass California man.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you very much for joining with us, and wish you all the best, because you stand for what's right. Is that correct? You stand for
Well,
what's right.
I try to. I mean, I may be, you know, my concept of what is right may be entirely different from somebody else's concept, but you know, I think there's a moral right, like in the situation with the masks. The medics need them. We know how much they need them. If Jeff Bowman had a few in his garage and he took them over to the hospital, if Canada Post has a room full or a trailer full or a box full, somebody should take it over and give it to the medics, just like Jeff Bowman did, just like Jeff did in his example of what we should all do, from citizen all the way through to corporations and crown corporations.
Good. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.